back with another episode of the IBJJF Podcast. My guest today is Victor Hugo. Victor is a two-time world champion. He's a Nogi world champion. He's a Pan-Gi and Nogi champion. He's also a heavyweight GP champion, and he's going to be competing at the upcoming Nogi Worlds in the ultra heavy division, which kicks off in about a week. Victor, thanks so much for being here.
My pleasure. I really appreciate IBJJF for the invite and you, Danny. It's really cool to see you guys opening up space for, the guys that compete at the high level, us that we compete at the pro division, to come out and speak a little bit about mindset and all that. So really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. So I do want to talk about the Nogi Worlds, but first we've got to talk about your Gi World title this year. You won Ultra Heavy Gold. It was your second straight world title. And the final match was honestly one of the best matches of the entire event. You fought Gutenberg Pereira, who's such an incredible competitor. He's got an amazing game. And Gutenberg got off to a pretty good start in the match. He was up 2-0 with 4 advantages. He was in a knee cut with double underhooks at one point, but you were able to really impressively weather that storm. You got the sweep, the guard pass, and the mount for 9 points at the very end of the match. I know that title was really meaningful for you. So can you talk about your thoughts on the title about 6 months removed from it now that you've had some time to reflect?
It was a very dramatic way to win,
Yeah.
For sure. My coaches and the people, my friends, they would like something less emotional, but it is what it is. As you said, he had such a great start. He actually got those 2 points because he had my arm there for a second. He went for a really tight arm bar, and I had to sit back because my arm was hurting and I couldn't grip for like probably 2 minutes. I couldn't have a grip because whenever you get arm barred really hard, you kind of lose the sensation of your hands go numb a little bit. So I was kind of numb. But I think what was important there on the match was that I never gave up, and neither did the people on the outside. No, they kept cheering for me. They kept pushing. They kept telling to, like for me to go. And I believe it was just like great opportunity to put it all together. My training, the mindset part, because I was injured for a while. I couldn't do the things that I like to do. I couldn't play the games that I like to do, but still I showed up to train and found a way that I could train and still get better. So all that helped me, like to be strong at that moment, endure the bad time and come back whenever I had opportunity. As you said, he had such a good start, but it's not over till you tap. So, even with 1 minute left, you're still able to do it. So it was just a way to prove that you shouldn't give up before you try your best. I tried my best, 1 minute left, and now it's history. And I think it was also so special because the same thing could have happened in a smaller tournament, maybe an open, maybe even a pins, but it was a world. So I think I get a lot of praise for the match because it was a world, and I'm pretty sure that one's gonna stay for the books for one of the best comebacks ever. So, really happy to have written my name in the history somehow, and I look forward for less dramatic finals, hopefully.
Yeah, it was such an incredible match. And it was cool because I got to catch up with you right after the match, and you talked about how important your training was for that moment, how Shanji is always putting you under so much pressure, and you always have to endure in training. Can you talk a little bit more about that and why that was so important?
Yeah, I think that's a strong pillar of our team, right? Six Laser Jiu Jitsu. Shanji, had he fought his whole career, probably plus 20 years, and no one ever passed his guard. But I think a big part of that is how calm he is when someone is on side control, because usually on his training he put himself there, he put himself in worse positions than that. So that helped him, like have this strong mentality towards defense, like not be so freaked out whenever he gets a good position. Even the no matter the level. So I would say is a really like deep jiu-jitsu. We get really deep into our sessions, the fact that someone, have a cardio guard on me like Gutenberg had for a while, a knee cut, it doesn't mean that it's the end for me. So that's something that we work, every day. Of course, we work other side of jiu-jitsu, but having the confidence of always be able to come back, of survive, I think is something really important that not only professional athletes, but any practitioner, jiu-jitsu practitioner should have on their mind, survive at all costs, and then you can come back. And, it's something that we work, it's something that I actually got more into as I joined the Six Lanes team, former Ribeiro, back 6 years ago, because they were so good at the positions that I wasn't, and I wasn't be able to survive. So they had to actually teach me and get on my mind that if I survive, I'm actually going to have a chance to get back at you. If I freak out and I give up, end up tapping or something, there's no come back from that. Of course, it's a training. We always get to train again. I'm not telling anyone to like get a full armbar and not tap, but always find the surviving positions and don't freak out when things don't go your way. So I think there's also something that I think for life too. I'm known for winning major tournaments, but there's also losses in my career. And some days, even the IBJJF tournaments, you're gonna be fighting absolute, you're gonna be losing absolute, and you still have your division. So know how to prepare yourself to come back from those bad spots in life. In jiu-jitsu is very important. I think that's something that everyone should take from jiu-jitsu.
That's an incredible mindset. And I want to talk about your Nogi training too, because at black belt, at least, you've always competed gi and Nogi. You've had great results. You had that 2019 Nogi world title. When did you start training Nogi? Was it something that you started early on in your career? Or did you start it a little bit later?
So just like Brazil, I believe even here, whenever I changed here, we never had a big habit of training gi more than once a week. Usually it's on Friday. I think that's the really common way that any school, like most of the schools, maybe now change a little bit, would take nogi. It would be one day of the week. So I probably did that from 2011 till 2018. Whenever I met Lovato, he was doing MMA, so he was doing a bunch of nogi, and I went to his school and I saw that he actually was doing more nogi than gi. I thought it was interesting, so that's probably when I started to picking up nogi more. But still, since my schedule was always busy with gi, most of the time I just train gi and nogi once a week. So I believe since 2020 was whenever I started like actually training more nogi and equalizing, splitting half and half whenever I don't have a gi tournament. So I would say maybe 2019 and 2020 is whenever I actually started to training more nogi, study more nogi. Because even though we say everything is jiu-jitsu, there are certain details and techniques, and actually the rule set also changes. So since then I've been deep diving in nogi, and I believe after every big competition that I have, I'm always looking forward to learn more and see how I can get better at it. But it's just amazing for me because even though being a black belt and being a world champion, having such a major titles in the sport, I still feel like a student. There's so much that I can learn and improve, and I believe that's what's helped me become like a real black belt, like a real martial artist, and be comfortable on teaching no matter who, because I'm trying to, have a wide vision of jiu-jitsu.
That's a great point. You mentioned how the rules are a little bit different in Nogi. The game's a little bit different. Of course, the grips are different. What are some of the things you've been working on lately in your Nogi game that you feel have helped you a lot?
I think definitely the standing part, in jiu-jitsu gi, the standing you make your grips, and it's kind of, it's not. It could be hard for someone to break your grips depending on how you use them. In no gi, you don't have that sensation that you can hold someone for too long with the grip. So be smart with the grip exchanging. Always be ready to switch your grip for a better one, and be ready for the next grip. So don't stay attached too much at one grip or one angle. Always switching up to the next angle, next grip, looking for a better position, and eventually a submission, a sweep. So I definitely think the pace a little higher and the room for mistakes a little smaller since everything becomes more slippery throughout the match. At the beginning the grips are working good, but halfway to the end, everything is more slippery.
Yeah.
You tend to be sloppy. So working with that and still be precise. I think the best guys to do nogi, they're really good at being precise and not missing opportunities. So that's what I've been working on. The standing part too. And yeah, I think that's it. I also look forward to show in person what I've been working, what I've been cooking back at the lab, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a fun weekend.
It's pretty incredible that you've only been training Nogi seriously for a couple years because your Nogi game it looks so well developed and complete. And you won your first world title at the 2019 Nogi Worlds. You obviously submitted Cyborg in the final of the open class. It was such a great submission, such a great victory. How did you feel about getting your first world title at the Nogi Worlds in 2019? What did that mean to you?
I meant a lot because at the same year I still was a brown belt. A couple months before that, that's when I did the double Grand Slam. I think I to this day I don't remember or I don't know who else was able to do a double Grand Slam as a brown belt. I won the Europeans, the Pan American, the Brazilian National Worlds, double gold, and still, like as I always say, it's really easy for you to get comfortable. So I just saw World NoGi as a good chance for me to have a first big major tournament as a black belt, and the divisions are stacked, and I had a really good run. Had good matches, and end up the finals with a submission. So the best way possible, maybe a couple months ago as a brown belt. So after that, become a absolute world champion by submission was amazing, and it goes back to what I was talking before. I actually had to face Cyborg on my division two. I ended up losing a day before, so I had to go back to my room, get my mind set, like fixing the mistakes on my mind, trying to think what would be a best way to come back better and work. I came back better. I got a submission, so that's how I'm looking at these World Championships too. The last one I didn't have the best performance. I ended up losing to, I believe, the guy who was the best one of the day, Pedro. But I look forward. Like 1 year has been since that tournament, so I look forward to show everyone my improvements and to show myself that I'm able to do it again.
Yeah, this year's ultra heavy division is pretty stacked too. You got Cyborg again, you got Roosevelt Souza, Helton Jr., John Hansen, a bunch of other really talented competitors. How have you been preparing for the 2022 Nogi Worlds?
The preparation started, like probably 6 months ago since I shift more my career towards Nogi. And I see the World Nogi is just a great platform for me to show, what I've been working on. And I'm still gonna be working more Nogi at the beginning of next year. But I'm really I worked on getting a really well-rounded game. I believe if you feel comfortable standing, passing, and playing guard, you pretty much will be really hard to beat. So I think you guys could expect a little bit of that on that tournament. I'm not gonna be so much, tunnel vision something. I'm gonna be trying to switch up a little bit. So you guys definitely gonna see a little bit of that, and let's see what's gonna do. Like I think it's very good how nowadays we have so many big names doing those divisions, because it makes it the tournament even more exciting because you don't know who can actually win. Like the chances of someone win, of course, there's always a favorite, but it could be up to anyone. So that's awesome. That makes the sport grow, and I love it when I see a division challenge the division. It's good. I love a challenge.
Yeah, we have to talk about your style too. You call it big man flow. You talked about being well rounded and how important that is for you and how you're working your takedowns. You're always working your leg locks, top game, bottom game. How did you develop that style? Was there anything you did in training specifically that allowed you to play kind of loose and be able to work all those different positions?
Yeah, as you know, like being 6'4" and 265 pounds, I'm never, I will, but I'm never always gonna have someone on my size to train with. And whenever training with someone smaller, if I just try to be big and use my strength and size to beat them in the round, I don't think it's the best approach. So that's just one situation where I could apply how I started to develop, the big man flow. Is if I have someone smaller, I would have to come down to their size and play in their own, like not their own game but their own pace. That means the movement, the gripping, the techniques that we're applying. So that also made me better, like at being this smaller guy against a bigger guy and I got my size. I could use speed just as I could use my flexibility and different techniques that the big guys are not used to face whenever face someone on their size. So I think that helped me become really unpredictable when it comes to jiu-jitsu. Whenever you stand up to face me, you don't know. Maybe I'm gonna do takedowns. Maybe I'm gonna pull guard. Maybe I'm pulling guard to get a sweep and be on top, or maybe I'm doing for a leg lock. So using the training partners and using the right techniques to train and make your train better. I think it's something that you will develop your flow. And for me, the big man flow is all about also being unpredictable. Oh, he's a big man, he's probably just like to pass, doesn't have a guard. Oh, he's probably just going to be boring standing. So you know kind of like break the stigma of big man does has to do has to be this type of game. Of course, there's sometimes that you have to use your size and all that, but I believe in the training room, the more you expose yourself to situations where you have to use technique as your way out, I think that's the way to go. So that's how I started training as a kid. I knew I was gonna be big at some point, but I never wanted to lose my flexibility and my speed and my mobility. So I always had that in mind. I was able to meet those guys, Shanji, Rafael, and they always praised me for that. They didn't judge. I think it was good. So it was just like it was good to have them supporting me on this journey. And nowadays, that's like how I'm recognized by like by the big man that does small man things. So it's pretty awesome.
And as a new academy owner and instructor, I'm sure that style is great to pass on to your students because you can show them a lot of different positions. What's it been like with your new academy in Austin, Texas? And what made you choose Texas as the location of your academy?
So yeah, 100% because like you don't know who's gonna walk in on the door. So having be able to flow is actually something that everyone that is starting jiu-jitsu should have, like because I think that's also one of the answers to the longevity. If you're always muscling, if you're always stiff, that's when injuries come in, and sometimes that's when you actually feel stuck. I feel like doing jiu-jitsu at some belt, you're gonna feel like improving as much. Maybe it's because you're kind of like overseeing this part of your jiu-jitsu. So I was able. It's actually a blast for me to be able to share a little bit of my experience that I have had and the competition training, visiting schools, training such high level athletes, and trying to help the person who's walking in the best way that I can. As I said, my jiu-jitsu, I'm always trying to have a wide vision of jiu-jitsu so I can help. It doesn't matter who, an older person, it's a kid, it's a big guy, it's a girl that weighs maybe 130 pounds. So having that well-rounded jiu-jitsu, it also makes me confident to teach someone a different style. So that's also what I look for in my school. Try to make everyone well-rounded and try to make everyone having a good understanding of jiu-jitsu. Even if you don't like that position, I think it's valid for you to learn in order to build a defensive system, or eventually teach someone else that it doesn't fit you, but it could fit someone else that one day you can teach them. So that's kind of how like I like to plan out my teaching and the program. And Texas was the choice because I moved here 2 years ago to train with Shanji. He opened his school. Whenever I was injured, it made me think about other ways. I always wanted to compete. Compete is my life to fight, but I know I'm not going to be able to do it for professionally forever. At some point I'm going to be a master. So I'm like, what's next? And also, I really like to have this, to have a place where I can teach my program and also where I can share my experience to kids. I was just a kid, like I was a kid, like everyone was one day, and I had the pleasure to meet great champions whenever I was a kid. I always was. I was always going to seminars and all that. I remember the very first person who I have a contact with that was at a high level of jiu-jitsu was Leandro Law. I met him I was a white belt, and he was super nice to me. I got to asking a couple questions, and I was like, "Oh man, that guy is actually real." Yeah, I got to see him. I got to go to his seminar, so that was pretty awesome. Whenever I met him, it kind of fired up on me a little bit that desire to be a professional one day. And just having like I met Paulo Miao as a white belt. I met another like a great number of champions during seminars, and they had such a big influence on me on how to like train, on seeing that there's a future on becoming a professional from jiu-jitsu professional player. So I think having that location for me now and making it more accessible for people who are looking for it one day is very important. Like I have a couple kids there, even if they don't want to become a jiu-jitsu pro, find a way that jiu-jitsu which will not change but will impact their life in a positive way. I think it's amazing because my self-confidence, my discipline, everything got better after I started jiu-jitsu. And for me, it's just about like sharing, like sharing and trying to make you a positive impact on your life, just like jiu-jitsu made on mine. So that's one of my main missions with my school.
That's amazing that you had those experiences as a kid, getting to meet those world class competitors. And kids jiu jitsu has really been blowing up as of late. There's so many kids training and competing now, and they're at such a high level. It's really incredible. It's going to be amazing to see where the sport's at in 10 years. Can you talk a little bit about the growth of kids jiu jitsu and how you've seen the level grow over the years?
Yes, I believe I have said it before, but one of my favorite tournaments, two of my favorite tournaments to watch and to be there as a spectator is actually the World Masters and the Pan Kids. Because like the world master is just fun for me because the master community is so important with jiu-jitsu. They're such big supporters, and the world masters is just interesting how serious they take the tournament. Like a lot of the guys, they have full-time job, they're running million-dollar companies, but they still find time to become an athlete and train hard and have actually competitive division throughout the years. The world masters, it only gets harder because the guys that fight at professional level, they become masters, so the division get harder. And the Pen Kids, for me, is just like the how much techniques and how mature the kids are becoming such a young age. Like I remember this year, IBJJF posted a couple of videos of the Pen Kids, and I had to actually replay it a couple of times because I couldn't understand what the kids were doing. So, having the access to such a high competitive level and at such a young age, I think is really, really, really cool. And how those kids are getting better fast, and a lot of those kids have a really good mentorship. A lot of the programs already see them as a professional one day. So I think that's just great for the sport. Like it doesn't take much. I believe Mika Galvão is a great example. I could be wrong, but the last time that I saw him, he was probably fighting worlds as juvenile blue belt, and after that he became a black belt world champion. So I think the gap is getting shorter and shorter on how fast you're going to be good at jiu-jitsu and how fast can you become a pro player. So that I think that also comes down to how fast the kids are learning jiu-jitsu and how fast they're getting good. So seeing the Pen Kid is always good because just like I said, it's very competitive. You don't know who's going to win. A couple kids are like has a little more hype. They have like big social media, but still they're going to have such a big different challenge. And it's very exciting because it's just the beginning. Like people and myself, we want to see them compete in 5 years as a purple belt, brown belt, or black belt. So it's a very exciting environment, and I think it just has to adapt to the sport. I never had the opportunity to compete at a big tournament as a kid, even though I wanted to. But nowadays the opportunities are there. The Pain Kids is one, and it's one of my favorite tournaments. The energy, how much effort, and like how much energized the kids look during the matches and before the matches is amazing. And yeah, it's a great opportunity. Definitely one of my favorites, but it's cool.
Yeah, such a great tournament, and the future is so bright for jiu-jitsu with all these kids at such a high level. So, Victor, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. We can't wait to watch you at the Nogi Worlds in the ultra heavy division, and hopefully the open class as well. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up the podcast?
No, just thankful for the opportunity, and looking forward for one more world title, actually too. So definitely it'll be at the absolute, and let's see how it goes. I'm bringing some big Miflon again to the World NoGi. Let's go.
Awesome. Thanks again, Victor. Thanks everyone for watching. You can watch the Nogi World starting on Thursday, December 8th. They run through the 11th, and you can catch all the action on Flow Grappling. We'll see you guys soon for another episode.